If I were to ask you all to close your eyes and determine what you think of when you hear the words United States of America, and that's not a hypothetical, I am asking you to do that, what is it that you imagine? I envision my home, maybe a couple of boys in blue, and internally debate whether the adorable, if dimmer, bulb in the box that is Ryan Lochte is a good ambassador for American sports. However, there is a broader image that we present to the rest of the world, one whose importance seems to be undermined by the resolution of our opponents. America, leader of the free world. It isn't a moniker we've assumed for mere grandstanding. America is championed for freedom of all sorts when the diplomatic state of the world allowed for it, and it has helped the international landscape accept democracy not only as a legitimate form of government, but also as the predominant one. Good morning. I, Tatum, and my partner Lloyd Crawford both see this role as indispensable and feel that removing our ability to fulfill it would be a mistake. The modern international system relies on conversation and engagement between all nations economically, diplomatically, and militarily. Were the affirmatives resolution adopted, our ability and want to engage in countries in any of these ways would be limited. This resolution, as a refresher, states that the U.S. government should enact a foreign policy plan of isolationism prioritizing domestic responsibility. The isolationism it proposes is defined by Merriam-Webster as a policy of national isolation by abstention from alliances and other international political and economic relations. Politically, this policy just wouldn't make sense. Economically, it wouldn't make sense. Morally, it wouldn't be justifiable. And while I'm sure the affirmative team has thought this through considerably, a change to the status quo of this magnitude just would not be desirable. All states in the modern world are connected politically through a complex system of relations, and any one state attempting to extricate itself from that system can be damaging to the whole. Countries that have political relations and economic ties via trade with nearly every other state would find it particularly hard to remove themselves from this bond. America may find it harder than even the majority of those few states, considering it has the world's largest economy according to the American Journal of Law. Were we to pursue isolationism, the entire international community of trade may falter. This theory applies to international aid as well. America abandoning its responsibilities to other countries could imbalance the system of aid and goodwill more fortunate countries have established. Though it may be argued that this, along with response to outbreaks of violence and threats of war, is the responsibility of the United Nations, the UN is an organization formed from treaties, and thus its political influence fluctuates depending on the power and number of nations supporting it. Nations refusing to acknowledge or participate in institutions like the UN diminishes its legitimacy, and thus its power to intervene. This is painfully true for America, whose withdrawal, with her ranking as the world's largest military power, could threaten the very foundation of the UN. The United States abandoning the national stage may also encourage other nations to do so, creating a chain reaction that would disrupt international politics and economics. Isolationism would not just hurt the world's economy, but also our own. It will result necessarily in a reduction of the average standard of living of its citizens, since many of its goods would become more expensive due to their being produced in the United States rather than abroad. A decline in this real wealth of the country would mean shrinking of the overall economy. The Cato Institute argues that the global elimination of trade barriers could raise the U.S. income by $500 billion. Raising trade barriers thus harms in terms of material wealth. Under an isolationist system, the United States would also be hampered in its pursuit of new knowledge and technology, since it would be cut off from the international marketplace to a large extent, where ideas are shared on an international stage. The result would likely be the United States getting left behind technologically as the rest of the world shares ideas and progresses while the United States focuses only inward. And since isolationism would not likely be an eternal policy, adopting it would hurt our future international trade prospects. We would lose the meticulously developed trade relations we have with our current allies, and withdrawing from developing countries who have not established themselves enough for trade yet would both break down our budding relationships and slow their development and economic potential. More importantly, it's worthy of note that the economy is improving, even with our current involvement in foreign aid. The Washington Monthly reports that the debt has fallen among middle-class families by $1.6 trillion, and the U.S. gross domestic product, GDP, has continued to rise, maintaining the revenue to GDP at 36%. Our national debt has also been dropping, and its accumulation has slowed. These are very good things, and we've managed to achieve them even with our interventions in Haiti and Libya and Egypt. Countries that are involved with world affairs and countries whose economy and citizens are excelling are not mutually exclusive ideas. In fact, their Venn diagram would almost be a perfect circle. So please, circle negative and vote for my partner and I. Thank you for listening.